A political firestorm has erupted in Washington following a fatal ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis, prompting Congresswoman Robin Kelly to announce plans to file articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has got to go. Congresswoman Robin Kelly has announced plans to file articles of impeachment against her, saying that she has turned ICE into a, quote, vogue force. Representative Kelly says 3 articles will be fielded, one accusing Noem of willfully obstructing justice, another accusing her of directing unconstitutional actions and compromising due process, and then a third alleging Noem abused her office for personal benefit. She joined Chicago live this afternoon to discuss the impeachment effort.
The announcement came less than a day after the death of Renee Nicole Good.
Chicago and the Chicagoland area, has been traumatized by Kristi Noem, and I call it, and her gang, and she's terrorizing, all of these cities and suburbs. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and really, she should not be the Secretary of Homeland Security.
The articles of impeachment will be filed tomorrow. Kelly is running for Senate. Another candidate, Representative Rajna Krishnamurthy, has said he will support her efforts to impeach Noem,
an American citizen who was shot during a federal immigration enforcement encounter. The speed and seriousness of the response have drawn national attention, not only because impeachment is a rare step, but because it signals growing frustration among lawmakers over federal enforcement tactics and accountability. While the impeachment effort faces steep political odds in a divided Congress, it has reopened urgent questions about the role of federal agencies, oversight authority, and how quickly institutions should act when civilian deaths occur during law enforcement operations. The incident that sparked immediate congressional action. On Wednesday morning, ICE agents were involved in a confrontation in South Minneapolis that ended with shots fired into a vehicle driven by Renee Nicole Good. She was transported to a hospital and later died from her injuries. Within hours, federal officials released statements asserting that agents acted in self-defense, alleging that the vehicle was used in a threatening manner. However, local officials who reviewed available footage and preliminary reports expressed concern, describing the incident as avoidable and calling for an independent investigation. These conflicting interpretations set the stage for rapid political escalation, with calls for transparency growing louder as more information emerged. Federal and local narratives quickly diverge. The response from federal leadership and local authorities could not have been more different. The Department of Homeland Security characterized the encounter as a defensive action taken under threat, while Minneapolis officials urged caution, stating that facts were still being gathered. Mayor Jacob Frey publicly questioned the necessity of lethal force, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz described the incident as deeply troubling. The divergence highlighted long-standing tensions between federal enforcement agencies and local governments, particularly in cities that have previously experienced controversial law enforcement actions. This gap in narratives fueled public distrust and intensified demands for independent oversight. Congresswoman Robin Kelly takes an uncommon step. Less than 24 hours after the shooting, Congresswoman Robin Kelly announced she would file articles of impeachment against Secretary Noem. Speaking publicly, Kelly emphasized that her decision was not impulsive, but rooted in what she described as a pattern of federal enforcement behavior affecting multiple cities. While acknowledging that impeachment is a serious and extraordinary measure, Kelly argued that congressional oversight requires action when executive leadership is alleged to have allowed or encouraged conduct that results in civilian harm. Her announcement marked one of the fastest responses of its kind following a law enforcement-related death. Understanding the 3 articles of impeachment. Kelly stated that the impeachment effort would include 3 articles. The first alleges obstruction of justice, citing claims that DHS limited congressional oversight, restricted access to facilities, and failed to cooperate fully with lawful inquiries. The second alleges violations of public trust, asserting that federal actions compromised due process and public safety in multiple jurisdictions. The third focuses on alleged abuse of office for personal or political benefit, an accusation that goes beyond enforcement policy and into questions of ethics and governance. Together, the articles aim to frame the issue not as a single incident, but as a broader leadership failure. Why timing became a central issue. The rapid timeline from the shooting to impeachment filings has become a focal point of discussion. According to Kelly, her office had already been examining ICE operations following earlier incidents in Illinois, including controversial enforcement actions in Chicago. The Minneapolis shooting, she said, represented a tipping point rather than a starting point. This context suggests that the impeachment articles were not drafted overnight, but activated when lawmakers felt another serious incident made delay unacceptable. The speed reflects a sense of urgency rather than a conclusion about legal responsibility, a pattern alleged across multiple cities. Supporters of the impeachment effort argue that the Minneapolis incident fits into a broader national pattern involving ICE operations in cities such as Chicago, Charlotte, and Los Angeles. They cite reports of aggressive enforcement, alleged due process violations, and community disruption. Critics of ICE leadership contend that without meaningful accountability, such incidents risk becoming normalized. Federal officials, however, maintain that agents operate under difficult conditions and follow established protocols. The impeachment effort seeks to force a public examination of these competing claims. The significance of bipartisan and institutional support. Representative Raja Krishnamurthy quickly announced his support as a co-sponsor, adding institutional weight to the effort. As a senior member of the House Oversight Committee, his involvement suggests that concerns extend beyond a single district or ideological faction. While the effort remains largely partisan at this stage, its supporters argue that oversight should not be viewed through a political lens when constitutional rights and public safety are at stake. Whether additional lawmakers join will be closely watched as a measure of how broadly these concerns are shared. The political reality facing the impeachment. Despite the gravity of the accusations, the impeachment effort faces significant structural obstacles. Republicans currently control the House, making it unlikely that the articles will advance out of committee. Even if they did, conviction in the Senate would require a supermajority that is not realistically attainable. Kelly has acknowledged these realities, framing the effort as an act of accountability rather than a guaranteed path to removal. In this sense, impeachment is being used as a tool to formally document concerns and compel public scrutiny. Why symbolic actions still matter. While critics argue that an impeachment destined to fail is purely symbolic, supporters counter that symbols play a critical role in democratic accountability. Filing articles of impeachment creates an official congressional record, preserves evidence, and signals to both the public and future administrations that certain actions are unacceptable. It also places pressure on executive leadership to respond publicly rather than behind closed doors. For families affected by enforcement actions, symbolic recognition can matter deeply, even when legal outcomes remain uncertain. The human impact beyond political strategy. At the center of this debate is the loss of a human life. Regardless of political affiliation, many Americans are unsettled by images of law enforcement encounters ending in civilian deaths. Kelly and other supporters of the impeachment emphasize that their actions are driven not by ideology, but by responsibility to constituents who feel unsafe or unheard. The impeachment effort reflects a broader demand for systems that prioritize de-escalation, transparency, and accountability, particularly when federal power intersects with everyday life, oversight, power, and the role of Congress. The Constitution grants Congress oversight authority precisely for moments like this, when executive actions raise serious questions. Impeachment is one of the few tools available when lawmakers believe ordinary oversight mechanisms have failed. Whether or not this effort succeeds legislatively, it underscores an ongoing struggle over checks and balances in an era of heightened polarization. The debate is not only about immigration enforcement, but about how power is exercised and constrained in a democratic system. What comes next in the process? In the coming days, the impeachment articles are expected to be formally filed and referred to committee. DHS leadership will likely issue statements rejecting the allegations and defending agency actions. Meanwhile, advocacy groups, legal experts, and civil rights organizations will continue pressing for independent investigations into the Minneapolis shooting. The release of additional video or witness testimony could further influence public opinion and political momentum. Long-term implications for federal enforcement. Beyond this specific case, the impeachment effort may shape future discussions about federal law enforcement practices. Agencies may face increased scrutiny over training, rules of engagement, and coordination with local governments. Lawmakers could also pursue legislative reforms aimed at clarifying oversight authority or limiting the circumstances under which federal agents operate in local communities. In this way, even an unsuccessful impeachment could have lasting policy consequences. A defining moment for accountability. Congresswoman Kelly has framed her decision as fulfilling a promise to her constituents to act when federal power causes harm. Whether history views this impeachment effort as symbolic or consequential will depend on what follows, both politically and institutionally. What is clear is that the Minneapolis shooting has forced a national conversation about accountability, trust, and the responsibilities of those who lead powerful federal agencies. In moments like this, the question is not only what Congress can do, but what it is willing to put on record.